13th of September, 2025, 1:09 a.m. I used to be a writer. I used to write because words burst forth, flowing out of me in endless streams. I used to be a writer. I would disguise my pain in characters and watch as they solved the things I couldn't, watched as I embellished their pain beyond human confines and told them to face it all head-on regardless. I used to write because it brought me joy and endless entertainment and a smiling face. I used to write because I loved it. I became a poet. I always wrote poetry because it was easy. The words flowed out of me, but in a different way. I was able to disguise the most straightforward of ideas and bury the truth while still letting it outside. I allowed people to see parts of me that not even I would admit were true, truths I now cower behind. Poetry was easy. The most flowery of words could stab the deepest and ring the most true. I still write poetry because I am still able to pour out my feelings, and I am still able to hide them when they become too nerve-wracking to show. I used to be a writer. Now I am just an author. I always wanted to be an author. I wanted to write books. More than that, I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to write words. I wanted to write because it was the most beautiful thing to me. It was the most fun. It was the easiest. It was calming. It was joy-inducing. But that was when I was a writer. Now, I write books. I publish them. I polish them. They are for the world to see, and they are professional. I am an author. I am an author. And that killed the joy of being a writer. I ruined writing. One day, everything changed. One day, I felt my work was good enough to publish. I called this good enough to share with the world. That was not true. I had always shared my work with the world. It never had to be good. It just had to make me happy, a happiness so intense it brought me to share. Ever since I was little, I would find someone to read my work. I would shape it and twist it to bring them more enjoyment in their reading. But overall, I would still fulfill my desire to write. The words would flow out of me. It would be easy. I made too many rules. I still write poetry because there is no correct way to do it. There is no perfect, proper formula. Every single decision can be a choice. Every period, every grammatical notion, every word. There are no mistakes. There is a way to hide from the judgment. It is art. Books can be perfected. Authorship can follow a formula. Eyes can point out mistakes, and there is not a surefire way to say they were intentional. You can be wrong. Your formatting, your editing, your storytelling, your efficiency, your style, all of it. You can pour your heart and soul into something, and it can be wrong. I stopped writing short stories. I stopped writing incomplete thoughts. I stopped writing emotions. I stopped putting my feelings on paper. I started writing in color and glitter because the black was too dark. It reflected life too deeply. I looked back at my pain and decided no more, because why would I want to remember myself by my worst moments? I began to paint flowers over my darkest hours. I began to create art over my broken heart. But the truth is, my most beautiful words come from my most honest emotions. My best characters stem from the feelings I no longer allow myself to feel. I stopped wanting to drown in my sorrows, but that meant I put a dam on the falls of my creative flow. I buried the good with the bad. I never learned for them to coexist. My diary can be filled with sparkles and butterflies and pastel colors, but there is nothing for me to paint over if the black is never underneath. I stopped writing short stories because they weren't professional. Everything had to have a purpose. Publication, reach, furthering my career. But there was a time when I wrote just because I loved it. I wrote the words that felt the most relevant. I published stories to the world, and I didn't care how perfect they were. I wrote them because I loved them. I loved my characters. I loved my feelings. I hated my feelings. I loved my words. I stopped writing too much emotion in my diary because it took up too many pages. Why waste a pretty cover that I paid for? I stopped typing stories because they were taking too much time away from the real writing. They were too frivolous, too imperfect. Now I barely write at all. Not for work, not for pleasure, not even in my diary. And I feel like there is a deep hole inside of me, like a fundamental part of me has gone missing. And I feel the calling to write tugging deep at my heart day after day, night after night. Alas, I never write. I do not satisfy my cravings, even when I know what they are for. How am I to do so when it's in such an imperfect way? I don't need to waste paper. I don't need to waste time. I tell this to myself, all while the truth is right there in front of me. I am wasting much more when I fill that hole in my being with trying to distract myself from this desire, this gift that God has given me since I was a child, this part of my person from when I was formed. For whatever reason, God made me a writer. He gave me this way to smile. He gave me this ability to escape. He gave me something not everybody has. He gave me an entertainment and enjoyment that is permanently baked into who I am. I don't have to look to any external source to find it. And God, I thank you dearly for that. But I reject it, even though I love it. Even when harm does not have to come from it, even when it is a core part of my existence, even when, on my best days, it can honor the one who gave it to me. I don't have to write anything that is perfect. I do not have to make a cent from my work. I do not have to reach the masses or tell the perfect story or make the perfect video or make my notebook look perfect. I am not perfect. I can never be perfect. But I can write. I can write paragraphs and pages and the most ugly and beautiful words. I can cover them with flowers and frame them in a cover. I can get them out of my head and off of my chest and onto the paper in front of me. I can ink them or type them or paint them or glue them and then delete them and make them go on for as long or as short as I need them to. I can write my best days and type my worst. I can then print them and fold them up and put them in a folder to find again later, where I can then decide if they were worth keeping at all. But it's time I stopped denying myself that craving, that urge that gets words to fill a page in a matter of seconds. It's time I write the stories that need telling. It's time I seek the people who will listen. It's time again for me to write. Before she was an author, Angelina Scripter was always a writer.